Hello, everyone, and welcome to the For We Are Many podcast. My name is Rob, and I'm sitting here with Mako of the Illahee Spirit Runners. They're celebrating 300 direct actions, which I think is safe to say is more than. And we're going to those actions today.
Yes.
Trish is also around here somewhere. She keeps popping out of the room. I would assume that her service is not great where she's at. But that's okay. We will carry on anyway. So, do you just want to talk about the events that you brought up earlier, or do you just kind of want to talk about?
Start going down the list. There is a reference, but so I suppose it was back in like 2012 thereabouts. Because the Occupy movement happened, right? And so like I already had this foundation with American Indian movement, but some things were preventing me from, really getting involved. And then like I remember Occupy happened and everything got major there for a couple years. And I was over in Eastern Oregon. I ended up over there to go, take care of this wolf issue. And so like I had experience, and then got over there, was doing the Occupy thing. And, so I went against Chase Bank and different stuff like that. But then, I kind of assessed the area and realized there's nobody out here, like, holding this down. There's, like, basically, like, I don't know, some, like, kids that are too scared, like, trying to do, like, cop watch or something. But they're like too scared to make a stand on anything. So I was just like, well, I claim this area, I'll get to work. And we went the decolonized route, and so back in that time, it's interesting because we did that and a lot of people like called us traitors or something.
Wow.
But we quickly established that, and I proceeded to do 100 direct actions that year. That was back when like, the Mayan calendar was ending and things were like things were pretty major, things were stirring around. And so I just tried to really do as much as I could in that time. And I feel that we broke a lot of records. I don't know of anybody who did 100 direct actions in a year. That equals out to like about one every 3 days. So it's,
yeah.
I have not heard of anyone who could hold that pace,
I mean, really, it's impressive that anybody can. That's a lot to ask from anybody.
Yeah. And part of what just pushed me to do that is like it's in my nature. I remember entering a race when I was young. Not a race, more of like a charity run. And I was only like, I must have been like in the 6th grade or something, but I was already like, coaches would like see that I was physically fit and, and they like be like, hey, you want to run? You want to run? I know you can handle this mile. all these other kids are crybabies. Why don't you just run the mile for us? And so I would, and but I got into running. I got into this race, and these like adult men were trying to pass me and stuff. And every time they would, I go faster and harder than they could. And I look back, and they gave up pursuit. And so like that as a metaphor is like how I've been doing my activism. Because, being like a light skinned native, you have to understand Indian politics, more like hoops you have to jump through than white politics, African politics. It's the worst. If there's ever a people that exemplify that crabs in a barrel mentality, it's indigenous people. So I was very much picked on, and I knew I was going to have to work 10 times harder than everybody, and that they would still talk shit. Take 10 times more risks, 10 times more effort, 10 times more time. I remember like the first year I spent something like, I don't want to like throw too many numbers on a computer, but like I spent over $1,000 of my own money just to sustain that. You know what I'm saying? And so every time somebody picked on me, I went harder. And so that's why I did that 100 in a year. It's not only like to set goals and prove to myself to be like the best me that I can be, but also just to blow the competition the hell out of the water. Show them that they cannot hang with this. They cannot contend with this. You can make fun of me, but you're basically just making fun of yourself because you can't hold a candle to this.
Right.
And then so after 10 years of holding this pace, nobody can hold up. I mean, we blew Greenpeace out of the water right away. Nobody. Earth first. Nobody can hold a candle to this. And so in that race as a child, just as a young child, I ended up running. Well, it was really like 30 miles in a day. I ran over a marathon on my little legs. Wow. And I had to sleep for like 3 days on my little belly until my feet would heal because they were bloody. But then I just, that really showed me what I could do. Like inside, like I have this like drive and fire that can crush a lot of people. So that's how I be organizing still today. We're getting ready to celebrate 300. Yeah, it's interesting. I had a confrontation with a corporate entity this morning I didn't even plan on. So it's just a lifestyle of confrontation. So we just done a little bit of everything, with Occupy, right? There was when that Marine got hit with that canister in the head. So we all protested the police.
Yep.
The first time I got a feel for like, okay, we're going to go stack up on the police station and give them a hard time. That came in handy again during BLM because the liberals weren't hitting the target. So I went down, swooped the whole thing up and hit the target like we're supposed to. I did a lot of stuff in Idaho against the wolf hunt. Like I'm like the founder of Idle No More Idaho. So we had these experiences with fish and wildlife there, and trying to sneak up on them. And people asking me, how could I make my activism better? And so I was just thinking about this earlier today, like I'm thankful for people to come along and be like, hey, you know, I'm not trying to hate on you, but I really want to ask you, how can you make your activism better? And around then I had like observed like it is you know, a little bit, I'm interested in anti-nuclear. So I see this woman holds up a sign in front of a building for 30 years for anti-nuclear. And just observing her story, I realized that it didn't change anything. And that was that like epiphany moment that holding a sign was not going to be enough. And that's when I started trying to take these offices over. Okay. And it was from that criticism. People in their activism have to be willing to have like a criticism, self-criticism, be open to a little criticism. There's like shit talking or like people who are haters, and then there's like well-meaning people who are like, hey, how could you make it better? Like legit, let's up your game. And so I was thankful for that. And then I organized to take the building over. I came back with the Channel 7 news crew and took that shit over. And Fish and Wildlife threw me out of the building, you know, so it's like Idaho is like more aggressive. They had a head of Fish and Wildlife who was like a little more neutral. He was like, hey, these people are doing First Amendment rights. They fired his ass because he wasn't hard enough on the protest. And then they got a new guy in who's just like basically gets into rage right away and throws people out of the building. So this is how he's going to get promoted in the thing, is by going hard like that. You know, it didn't help the situation. You know, ultimately, it made things worse. So, I mean, because their agency is kaput. Even the right wingers want it completely abolished, and they think they can do better with privatize. And they're right. You know, the thing is actually that anybody could do better at this point. One good video to watch is U.S. Fish and Wildlife Exposed, created by PredatorDefense.org. And PredatorDefense.org, they're not very tough. They barely talk to me because I pressure them. But I forget dude's name now. But he said, Mato, I'm gonna make this video. I'm like, all right, I'm skeptical. Oh no, show me what you got. Brooks is his name. So Brooks makes this video and it comes out and it actually slams Fish and Wildlife big time. I'm like, hell yeah, Brooks. And so now I show this video to people and they're like, you know, because they got confessions of these people like testing expired cyanide grenades on dogs and then kicking them into the landfill and shit. And so people don't know that this is how Fish and Wildlife is behaving with, quote, taxpayer money. So we would like sneak up on Fish and Wildlife and take them over, get thrown out or whatever. We figure, you know, it's little cat and mouse. So you figure, well, the police will respond at some point and then we'll leave and come back when we want to, you know, and it kind of establishes this psychology of like, actually, we're running the show. We're calling the shots. We'll come and go as we'll please. We're the rightful stewards. And so we did like a thing in Salem to those offices, BLM, Fish and Wildlife. I will start to do sneak ups on these smaller offices, sub offices, to where I'm like sneaking up on fish and wildlife agents like in their repair garage, and they're like, "Oh, holy shit, you snuck up on me in the garage." Yeah, that's right. Or I'd end up in like the director's office. He's like, "You're not supposed to be in the office." And I was like, "This is my office." You know, just like establishing psychology on these guys. But also to the point that it make them feel vulnerable. Like, dude, how do you keep getting in my office? Kind of thing.
I mean, that's good though. They shouldn't get too comfortable.
Exactly.
They need to be held accountable to the people, regardless of how they feel about it.
Right. And then so like with that experience, we had done some stuff for wild horses as well
Yeah, that was
on
maybe
the
a different.
list there. Yeah. And
Yeah,
so
which location was that?
uh,
Oh, you didn't
horses
specify.
were murdered in Prineville. And sometimes you'll see groups like the Humane Society will throw out like a $5,000 reward or something. So, at that point, we're like, okay, we at least got, some mainstream attention. Let's go confront this office. And at that time, let's see, I went to the Malheur office and they were like, well, you got the wrong office. And I was like, no, I went to the closest one for my convenience, not for yours. But so I was able. You go into there, and then like it's operated by this like big rancher dude with these huge hands and stuff, And then I realized I had dude shaking in his boots. Like this big 250-pound rancher, scared of me, doesn't know what to do. He's like, well, we got to take a lunch. And when I come back, we'll talk about this. And that was basically, I knew he was calling for a timeout. Like I show
Wow.
up and all of a sudden they need a timeout or something.
Yeah, right.
Um, but so that time I had brought an archaeologist with me too, so I wasn't ill prepared, and so we really proceeded to make them feel foolish. And then I had gotten a wild horse specialist on the telephone. And we were able to change policy that day. See what they made it. They made it so wild horses in that area can't be killed unless the tribal people are acknowledged first. And that's like maybe not as enforced as it should be, and it's because nobody enforces the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. Hardly anybody enforces wildlife law. Issues like that. But we did change policy for what it's worth, and we're not reformist. But we do tally our victories. Every little victory is important to tally. Otherwise, you'll
Very
get
much so.
skeptics who are like, "Well, what did you ever do?" Well, we got to where we could change wildlife policy basically at will. Is that I don't know how many people can say that. Be like, "Hey, well, my group changes wildlife policy at will. We have a formula. We get shit done." I don't know a lot of people that can say that. See what else was on the list. We had to confront Army Corps of Engineers for no DAPL. I wasn't able to get out there on a bus. Basically, like gatekeepers prevented like the. And it's funny because I'm descendant of Standing Rock people, Dakota Oyate. And so it was just
Wow.
funny to see like gatekeepers trying to keep the Standing Rock guy from going to Standing Rock. And
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, it's that Indian politics I was talking about, the super gatekeeping. And so it was important to note that they would take like eco tourists. This one guy, I heard him say, he was like, I think it's more like ecotourism. It's like, oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna snag that because I think that that's correct. I feel you. So you get all these legal observers and stuff, and all these people who want to just go go 3,000 miles to watch us get beat up by the police and take some pictures or something. You know, over and because Standing Rock people was requesting leadership and medical at that time. And so that's what we had. Like I'm leadership, and like all my friends were like lieutenants by the time Standing Rock came up. They had all been promoted, right? Cuz we had all had experience from like the white clay struggle. We had banged on white clay so hard that we had a bunch of experience going into Standing Rock. And people were like, "Oh, Standing Rock came out of nowhere." The hell it did.
No,
It was
no,
created by a
that's a
lot of
ridiculous claim.
white clay veterans and stuff like that. So I thought it, very ironic that they would choose eco tourists over leadership and medical. I had a ex-Marine medic with me, so we actually had precisely what they were requesting: a leadership and a medic. And we got replaced with eco tourists. So
Wow.
it's very important to notice this kind of uh, impotent behavior that's going on. But regardless of that, every curveball they throw at me, I come out on top. I took a group out to a dam. I identified a target. I said, "All right, you think you have the entire Red Power movement surrounded up in the Dakotas. Well, you don't. And I'm going to raise up in the West and let you know for damn sure you don't have my people surrounded." And so I picked a target was a dam. And I don't even have to say what's implied there. When you go to a dam, it's implied. Anyone with a brain knows what's up. And so we confronted the army, you know, and it was funny, you know. I'll tell you how I set it up. I did a practice action, and we took over a bank. And we had like a bunch of hipsters, and like 40 people showed up. And after I was done, I said, "Did you like that? That was practice. That was a warm up. Now we're going to go head to head with the army. Everybody stand in line. Anyone who has the courage to go fight the army today, step forward." 9 people out of 40 stepped forward, you know. So yeah, like, I don't know, there's like some big burly aimster in the audience or in the line, and he stepped back. He chickened out. You know, all these hipsters chickened out. All these people chickened out. Start to throw the excuses. But, excuse. I went forward with 9 white kids that day. Completed the mission. Confronted the army. Lucky for my ass, they locked me out of the dam, and they were like, "Hey, dude, if you climb the razor wire at dawn, don't do it." And so they did their job to protect the dam, because I was going to go as far as I possibly could that day. And I got the media out there, too. I'm very media savvy, and it pisses people off to all hell. But I got the media out there. And so it's recorded. After that, people were trying to copy me. Like my haters, they were like, "Oh, maybe we should go to the dam. That was awesome." Yeah, well, who come up with that shit? You have to have the mind for it. So yeah, everyone's out there trying to copy me, and if you want to get with the good stuff, you should join Illahee Spirit Runners. What else we got?
So how exactly do people go about joining the organization? Do they just reach out to you directly, or?
Yeah, come find me directly. Yeah, you can hit me up on the Twitter, you know, and we can schedule a talk. You can hit me up on Facebook. I'm out there. I have a secure email if you're a little more cautious. We could set something up, but just come find me directly.
Okay.
I want to talk about Liberation Days, I think was on the list.
Yes.
Liberation Days was 2014. This is an annual celebration of the Wounded Knee armed resistance. It takes place in February. Um, so I would like to make it out there again someday, but 2014 was good. Um, I went out there and there was some elements making like a united front, and so there was like Africans, East Coast people, like even some like radical whites. Um, but there is a lot of radical activity there that year. Um, Other AIM chapters and stuff are good about showing up there. Colorado will come up and California will come out. It's like a really big thing. And so we took over White Clay that year and we shut it down. And so I wanted to make sure that people knew, like I traveled a long way to take the front lines of that struggle. And I was the second person into White Clay that night. I knew I wanted to be in the front. And the sheriff seen us preparing and passing around medicine, like sweetgrass and stuff. And it was snowing sideways. It's like 15 degrees. And so the sheriffs were like, "Oh shit, that's a lot of warriors. Like they must be like 30 or 40 deep. And it's 15 degrees outside and snowing sideways." You know what the sheriff did that night? They went home and watched football. They didn't want nothing to do with the warrior societies. And so we did whatever we wanted to that night. And we were banged on those targets that were practicing liquid genocide and poisoning our people and trying to break the will of the Lakota people with alcohol. And, we really scared the shit out of them. We really made them feel small that night. And it
So,
was
like,
all.
what? This is a little bit off topic, but I'm just curious. I totally didn't mean to interrupt you there, but like, what was the moment where you knew this is what you wanted to do? Like, was there a defining moment, or was it like more of a slow awakening?
Some of both. I mean, I wanted to be in the movement like in like 2008 kind of, and I remember growing up like listening to my grandpa talk on the phone on Sundays. Back then it was before, there's no internet, so all the old Aimsters would talk on the telephone on Sunday. And I'd listen to him tell these stories about like Denny and them and all the good things they're doing. And a little older, I was like, damn, he's talking about Dennis Banks and the American Indian movement. And my great uncle was involved too. And my great uncle come out a few years later. I was like, that's not real. They don't really know Dennis Banks, do they? He's like, how dare you question me? He says. He calls up Dennis Banks and puts me on the phone with him. Yeah. And so, it's like what that next year I went out for longest walk 3 and I walked almost across the United States. I made it from Portland to Wisconsin.
Wow,
Longest walk
that's a
3.
long walk. How long did it take you?
Oh, it was like I was on the road for like 3 months.
Wow.
We went to a lot of ceremonies too. There's some people out there, people like to talk. They're like, oh, he's blah blah blah. He won't get into a ceremony. I've been to more ceremonies than most of you people, but I was taught not to just display it everywhere. You know,
Not to brag about it.
not to brag about it. So just for the record, I'm not. Ha ha.
Oh man.
What else is on the list? Oh, we did the 6-day occupation of Nampa Fish and Wildlife.
Where is that?
So this is like a smaller sub office right on the border, and I got to kind of seeing that my preference was toward rural actions, and it's because you can overwhelm them. I mean, I've done both. I fought the horse cavalry in Portland, Oregon, and they'll really stomp you out and spray you with chemical weapons and call it a day. You know, they're prepared to do that. That's another day in Portland. But if you go to a rural area, you can overwhelm them. You might be able to overwhelm like rangers on staff. They might call the sheriff. You might be able to overwhelm them too. So why people are ducking and dodging rural actions is, quite frankly, I think they're lazy and they're unorganized. It's easy to organize in large cities. Hey, everybody meet at the park at 5.
Yeah, that is a lot easier than trying to get people to congregate in a rural setting, unless it's like
Right.
to go to the bar or to party.
Right. So yeah, we had to take action in a lot of these like high desert areas with very low populations, and so, yeah, at this particular one, there was a water dispute between the neighbor bordering Nampa Fish and Wildlife, and so, you know, I didn't delve too far into that, only as to take advantage of that, get myself put in a good place where the wildlife agency couldn't boot me off. And so at that point, I'm like practically on their front yard with a legal access that this neighbor had given me. And so I just camped out there for like 6 days. I heard them say that one time when I was kind of like warming up on them. They were like, "Oh, hey, this guy's not that bad. We don't got to worry until they start camping on our yard." So that's what I did.
Well, yeah, I mean that goes back to what I was saying about the guy in, what was it, Salem, I think. Like you can't let him get too comfortable. You have to let him know you're watching and that you're willing to take action.
Yeah. Yeah. We did one to protect water against fracking in northern Idaho. And so this was, I mean, all these were major learning experiences for me coming up. Seeing people willing to put a superheated slurry of 3,000 chemicals into the ground to get the last pockets of natural gas to rise when they know damn well it's going to poison the groundwater. 700 cracked wells, and they did it anyway. Schools drinking off of the cracked wells. Basically, they knew damn well they were going to poison their own children's drinking water and proceeded to do it anyway. You know,
It's fucked up. People valuing the profit to be made there over life itself.
Over life itself. And I tried to stand in the way of that, and I got very little support. This is kind of like the trend, is like everyone's waiting for it to be some big hashtag, or you can't wait for it to get pop. You got to be cutting edge. This is front lines. That's what front lines means. It used to mean that. that you would go somewhere, that you would leave your home, that you would travel, that you would go to dangerous places, that you would take up these struggles. And now people, oh, the front lines is everywhere. Yes, to a degree, but that also negates what we were saying about taking on these difficult challenges.
Yeah. I mean, we should be able to have a front line everywhere, but we should be able to coalesce, converge on key spots for bigger fights.
Right. And so, yeah, I was out in a scary place again. The rednecks calling us everything they could, and then the police came, and it was just little old me. So they threw me out of the way pretty quick. Lucky I didn't get my ass kicked. There was some white women there that came to my aid. They were like, "No, he's with us. You can't beat him up." And they poisoned all that water anyway. The kids got rare forms of cancer no one had ever seen before. And one of the engineers who worked on the project ended up killing himself. Realized what he had done.
Wow.
So it was just, another strange thing I tried to intervene on. A lot of these actions we do, you lose them. Hey, kids, be ready to take some L's. You feel me? Because we're fighting for the earth. You know what I'm saying? And so Mother Earth is getting beaten. And if you try to stand with her, be ready to be beaten too. Be ready to be insulted and disrespected and all these things that they're going to try to do, and then do it anyway.
Well said. Natalie said in the comments, capitalism kills. Agreed.
Absolutely.
Fracking, I think, was probably one of the first environmental issues that I got legitimately mad about. I saw, right. You've probably seen the same exact video, but I saw a video of somebody turning on their tap water and lighting it on fire with a Bic lighter, and I was like, oh, fuck no.
Right. Yeah.
But that was eye-opening to even the idea that a fellow human being would be capable of doing that to make a buck. Prior to that, I just didn't think it was possible.
Yeah.
And that really just blew the door off of that.
Right. It's subsidized. They don't even make a buck. It's like 17 cents a gallon. It's such a loss that it has to be subsidized.
Right.
Yep.
Let's see what else. Did we talk about Boise already?
They're trying to kick me out of Boise. So we have out of all of these 300 actions, we have 0 arrests. Only 1 injury was me getting thrown out of Boise.
Wow. So what was the headquarters of the Boise? That's all you wrote was Boise headquarters. So do you want to dive a little bit more into that?
So we had a lot of sneak ups on them, and sometimes we'd enter from the nature center that's next to it. And so, just giving you a feel of the whole political climate is, the people at the nature center work for them, but they don't even like them. You know what I mean? They're just getting a paycheck. Wow. So they'll help resistance people a little. They'll turn a blind eye. Oh, the resistance is gathering in the courtyard. Oh, okay. Let them gather, And so that was just really interesting to me that a lot of the people that work for Fish and Wildlife have really had it with them too. And we wear the mask, It's a Zapatista thing. You're like, why do you wear the mask? It's because we're invisible. You can't see us. No one takes our issues seriously until we show up with a mob of people with masks on. Then all of a sudden you can see us. And so
It's interesting how that works.
Yeah. The Zapatista slogan was, we cover our faces so you can see our hearts. And
I like that.
That really resonates with us at Illahee Spirit Runners. We exemplify that. Yeah.
As for them being blind to you, I think that's honestly an active choice that they are putting those blinders on. They don't want to see these issues until it's put in their face.
Right. Yeah, and so a lot of biologists will wear the mask. They'll come and rebel from behind the mask with us. Botanists, biologists, and I think if people, I want them to know. That's why I say it now. There's probably some cops are going to watch this, some fish and wildlife are going to watch this. And I want them to know your own people are rebelling against you from behind the mask. They have had it with your shit. They've had it with your shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that we've seen various forms of resistance from various comes to fish and wildlife. Bureau of Management, we can't forget Bundy Ranch, right? Like, I mean, that was a right-wing white family. I mean, granted, the issue that they had was that they wanted to let their cattle graze there, which is a totally separate issue. And I'm not trying to like say that they were in the right or anything like that, but I think everybody on both sides of the political aisle are just fed up with the overreach.
Right. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, the Bundy situation is completely oppositional to us because we're anti cattle ranching. The raising of European bovine has just been so destructive to this continent that we can't allow it anymore. And we know that we can remedy it too. You know, leave it to colonists to mess up a free barbecue. You know what I'm saying? We had the largest wild herds on planet Earth were here in Turtle Island. And the railroad that they made, they cut down all these old growth trees up here to make that railroad, shot all those buffalo to make artificial scarcity. And they didn't question that pattern because it's 1,300 years old, came from Europe. This world is abundant, right? So they have to inflict that false scarcity on people to make them suffer, to make them compete. Otherwise, capitalism won't work. They have to destroy 1 million free barbecues to get you to do their bidding. They're sick.
Agreed.
Fucking
yeah, that's some really good insight as well, because like I mean obviously I didn't even like think about the cattle ranching aspect when I brought it up. I was just like, oh well, this was a right-wing cause that a lot of people I mean, yeah, I completely agree. And I have, until I met you, I should say, I never really thought about how destructive cattle ranching
is. Yeah. So, I mean, we did another action in a rural area where we got a huge banner that said no grazing on public land and rolled up into this little town. We took over the BLM building, and then we were like, oh, hey, that was fun. Let's go take over City Hall. Yeah. And so we're like rolling down there, and there's like this big gang of cowboys who like try to threaten us. They're like, not in our town. And I just turn into a grizzly bear. I'm like, "Roar, come on, bring it on, chew your face." You know, and so I scare these cowboys in their own territory. And I've got like a couple war veterans with me and stuff, so I know I can back it up. And then the sheriff comes out and we punk him out too. And then we take over City Hall. So that's what I'm saying about you can hang out in Portland and get beat up if you want to, or you can come with me. You know, strategy, tactics. We gotta up our game here. Well, I mean, if you're
So, if you're what?
well, I mean, if you're looking for a group with higher standards, you should check out Illahee Spirit Runners.
I agree.
Oh.
I feel like there was something. Oh yeah, Oak Flat. You said you wanted to briefly talk about that.
Yeah, we can briefly touch on some of the bigger ones I've been to. I made it down to Oak Flat at a difficult time. When Wensler thought that the army was gonna come kick him off of his land. And so, I mean, like, I have a little bit of advice for warriors. It's like, before you travel 3,000 miles, make sure that the place that you go to wants warriors. You know, and I ain't trying to be a jerk. I'm just keeping it real because it owes some respect to the warriors too. But you go to some of these places and they have a preference for non-native clergy people or legal observers. You know, neo-colonial, petty bourgeoisie, aspiring kind of garbage. Maybe they don't even have a class analysis at all, you know, but they're elders and you're supposed to respect everyone. Whatever. I hold everybody to a higher standard. Like I've said before, you have to be at least this tall mentally to ride this ride. Anyway, and people think I'm a jerk, but you know, that's fine. We're a few weeks from the collapse of civilization, so go ahead and talk as much shit as you want to. I'm getting my shit set up and smart people are getting with me.
Well, I
Oakland,
mean,
there's
go ahead,
like
go ahead.
17. They went in there and drained all the water to a sacred place where they do the coming of age rituals for young women. And this place is a feminine area. The ones that dip low are feminine. Those peaks that are high are male, and they provide water. Learned that from the Apaches themselves. From being there. You can't learn stuff at home. You got to go be there. Okay. But because they didn't have enough warriors, the copper mines kind of like stole their water from them in the middle of the night and then popped up like 17 like little workstations around them. And so they're able to hold down this little spiritual area, but because they're not pushing, they're not aggressive enough, they're getting encroached on. The analogy I use is like the koala bear, right? You've seen those endangered koala bears, and more they take the forest until there's just a koala bear sitting there with no forest anymore. That's kind of what's going on in Oak Flats, because they're not pushing hard enough. They may change their mind and decide to push harder later. But I wish they would have done that at the get-go before alienating actual warriors. But
So
I'm
is the
proud of
struggle at Oak Flat still going on?
it. Is, yeah. It's all this stuff is going to escalate because the Defense Department wants the copper, it wants the lithium. People don't realize how serious it is. They're just dilly-dallying. But they will, if they don't get their way, they will send the military. This is why I was like proud of myself for being there. Like, go ahead and hate me. I did my job and I did it damn well. My grandson, or I am the grandson of the bodyguard of the general to the Korean War. I have a black belt in a bodyguard style. I was at that right place in time in history doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing, right on top of my destiny. He said he was scared and the army was going to come get him. Well, I came to protect him. Hate on me if you want to. I handled my business. Red power.
Fucking heck.
CB, which I believe is Caitlin, said, which direct action surprised you the most, both for better and for worse?
Oh, I don't know. I was at this one in Portland that got really hairy really quick, and before we knew it, they had moved on us with not only the horse cavalry, but bicycle police. There was like a helicopter flying overhead. The police attacked the people, instigated a fight, and like the women in the crowd just berserked and started fighting the police, and started pepper spraying the shit out of the police. And I was like, what the hell have I gotten myself into? I try to scale the damn wall like a ninja, and then I'm like bounced out into the middle of the street, and there's like a cop sprinting at me full force. I'm like, oh hell no, I used to run track, son, you ain't gonna catch me. And I run as fast as I can, and there's like a helicopter flying after me. I saw myself on the news that night. Just running. I wasn't tough that night. I was just running.
I don't blame you at all. Honestly, that sounds like crazy.
Yeah. I found out later they were looking for a guy in a red sweatshirt who had stopped traffic. Wasn't me. But I was wearing a red sweatshirt that day, so they wanted my ass. I couldn't figure out, like, why are you chasing me, dude?
You're all like, I haven't even done anything yet.
So just stuff that, you know. And what really surprised me is like the amount of racism we're going to have to overcome to protect the environment. That broke my heart and put me in a really rough spot for a few years, coming to grips with that. I've had to come to grips with a lot of things as a leader that would have broke most of people. That's why I'm still here after 10 years. Join Illahee Spirit Runners, Red Power.
Paul asked, do you think it would help our country if we have more wind farms? I want to specify, though, before I turn this over to you, when we say our country, we're not hopefully talking about the US of A, but we're talking about Turtle Island.
Right. Yeah, so we believe specifically in indigenous rule. Some technologies in the hands of the people can be beneficial. And if we get control of Turtle Island, we can set our own environmental standards. And if we don't like it, we can throw it out. But in a lot of the cases, the more that we go back to like an off-grid situation, have like a voluntary step back, is the less that we're going to experience catastrophic loss of life coming into impending collapse.
Well, I mean, we kind of already are, especially on some of the sites that you've taken action at, like Thacker Pass with the lithium mines there. The stuff that they're dumping into the water from those lithium mines is killing the fish and other wildlife that drink out of that water there. And a lot of people don't realize that mining lithium for super storage batteries is not necessarily the green source
yeah, right.
resource that you think it is to replace fossil fuels.
Yeah, fuck green capitalism. That's not the answer. That's why I say it's more off grid. Less is more. Go back to using the horse, use the bicycle, use all these scraps. We don't even hardly need to probably manufacture anything for a few years. We have all these scraps. Like, we need to slow down. And so we definitely don't support green capitalism. Capitalism's trying to exploit new markets. So that's why they're getting tricky with this. Even with, like Greta Thunberg, like people never stopped to go check out who her family was. They've got her out slanging green capitalism. Those people are from they're selling green energy. She's basically a young salesperson for green energy. She's a trick, you know? And so people don't want to hear that answer of go back to nothing, be off grid, give up your colonial lifestyle, and, but that's actually the answer.
Well, even for people who are going off grid, for a lot of them, that means using solar panels and battery banks. But those aren't being produced in an actually green manner.
No, I mean, if it requires mountaintop removal and poisoning water for 300 years, 300 years, come on. I'm shocked that I even have to explain it, but no, fuck green energy, fuck green capitalism. Red power. One of our elders, because I have like elders that are like tapped in, no like actual Lakota star knowledge, and I'll just drop this one on you. People have traveled planets before. People have already discovered that endless energy source that everyone's looking for, but it won't be revealed to you until you're ready to drop the anger, the jealousy, and the hate. So not anytime soon.
And
that's fine with me.
Only people could wake the fuck up to that. Like, these fucked ideologies only stand in the way of humanity actually moving forward. And it's one of those things that inherently pisses me off, that people would rather argue over shit that they're in pure ignorance of and stand in their own way than unite, come together, overthrow fucking capitalism, maybe start actually improving life for all of life. And Rob's in the comments, he said, in terms of green tech, hemp batteries are possible. And yeah, I'd like to see something done with that. At least hemp, when you're growing that helps clean the soil. That's something that is renewable and should definitely be looked further into. And he said it sounds like Star Trek, to be fair. And yeah, it does. That's one of those things we've discussed at length too, of like, what the fuck is it going to take for humanity to actually unite, overthrow fucking capitalism, and stop the exploitation, end the exploitation of the planet itself, and actually do some good across the board. I don't know what the fuck it's going to take, man.
Well, on our political analysis, we're saying that it's indigenous rule that can do exactly that.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm just wondering how to extrapolate that across the rest of the planet too, and not just Turtle Island.
Those are up to the people that are from those lands. So like Marcus Garvey say, Africa is for the Africans. That's why you see us support the All African Revolutionary Party so much, because they're an African organization based out of Africa.
Right.
And they're sworn to help us get our island back, so damn right we're going to help them get their island back.
Right.
They don't want a spot on our rock, and we don't want a spot on their rock. And I think a lot of people can learn from that politic. I even back in like 2014, 2015, I had to tell these white activists, like, hey, I wouldn't roll up into Scotland with 500 Aimsters and try to start telling you what to do. So it's absurd that you would try to do that here.
Right.
But that's just a power play. I say it often. This quote woke me up. Marcus Garvey said, a people without power and authority are a people without respect. So every time we have a lot of defiance disorder amongst the people right now, that they will lash out at legitimate indigenous leaders instead of build them up. Right now we have a situation like back in the 70s, COINTELPRO came in and cleaned house. Right now, we don't need COINTELPRO because the people oppress themselves. The people oppress themselves. Is Marcus Garvey, a people without authority and power are a people without respect. So how does that translate to the indigenous person? That's, well, all of our allies, so-called allies that can't get behind indigenous rule because they have problem taking orders from an indigenous person, because you haven't had teachers, people of authority, mentors that were people of color in your life, and you don't know how to listen to us on our own land, or people that are so caught up in gender sparring that they're like, oh, I won't listen to a man. Well, I face assassination, so trade me spots, and you won't. I'm pulling your card. You won't. So since I've taken this spot, held it up for 10 years, you will support me. It's not me. You will participate in your own liberation struggle, period.
Bingo.
I believe like the Irish Republican Army. A lot of people have different ideas, but I believe it's mandatory. When your people jump, you jump, or we're coming for you next. That's how the Irish Republican Army won their 300-year struggle and are hailed as an undefeated army. Listen up, kids. You want to be hailed as an undefeated army? There's only a few people are. It's like the Chickasaw and like the IRA are the two that come to mind. You could say like you're like an undefeated people. That's hella bragging rights. But you can't be sitting on the internet making memes. I'm so like thankful that all these young people have like communist analysis already. They're like, oh, Lenin's cool. Whoa, great, But are you gonna apply it beyond a meme?
Because praxis fucking matters.
Yeah. You need to join an organization. Yeah. And so Illahee spirit runners were anti-colonial and anti-capitalist. I've studied anti-civilization. That's how I know how to really go back to the roots. All these things. I used to roll with Anonymous, so I know I can teach you how to be more invisible online. You have to know internet security. I was in the Rainbow Coalition. I learned coalition politics. I learned you have to learn about the people you roll with. How do the Brown Berets operate? How do the Black Panthers operate? How do you not step on toes? How do you get the respect that you deserve? One thing about trophy hunting, because there's this, wildlife conservation aspect niche that we've really nailed down. I've learned from trophy hunting is the trophy hunter comes in and kills your most experienced male. and they might have younger males that have the same genetic, but they don't have the same experience. They haven't made it that many winters, gone through all those trials and tribulations, know when to zig when you should have zagged, you know? So you should be bolstering indigenous resistance leaders. Don't tear them down. This not inferiority complex, that's a big one too. You shouldn't be getting to where you feel some kind of way because somebody is more responsible, takes on a bigger load, or gets more shit done than you. That's some baby shit. Get off of it.
That's an insecurity. That's a them problem, not a you problem.
Well, it results in a us problem because these are the ways. And I took some psychology at the community college. I didn't know why, but now I do. I had to figure these people out. And so why they're lashing out at indigenous resistance, we really have to address that and change that, because that's exactly what the enemy wants. They want you to have no leaders. That's why they kill them all. And so if you have that same strategy, oh, hey, we don't want any leaders, those movements were the biggest jokes. Cascadia is one, where they're trying to organize this bogus neo-colonial shit on top of indigenous land. This is Illahee. Cascadia out of Illahee. Get off our land. But these people, they don't even have a leader. They have leaders, but you ask them who's the leader, and all of a sudden, oh, we have no leaders. And basically, that's a huge red flag. For anyone with experience, that means this group has no accountability whatsoever. If there's a problem and you need someone to go to, there's nobody. Zero accountability, just some cowards who can't be strong enough to say that they're the leader. There's a tyranny of leaderless movements, but you wouldn't know that unless you had 10 years experience like I do. So we run our shit like a militant. You know, all these, I'm going to tell you now because we're close to the end. We're all going to collapse anyway. Illahee Spirit Runners is a militant indigenous resistance organization. And we're one of the best on the whole continent, period. People think that we're a running group. Let them. I'll tell you because we're close to the end, but we're not a running group. That was just always something to get you to think something. And for people who all really have relationship, they know that's not true. You have to build relationships. You cannot have solidarity with a people you have no relationship with. They put up these color posters and say, meet at the park at 3 p.m. That's not solidarity. That's not organization. That's merely mobilization.
That was kind of like a mic drop moment, the complete dead silence. Well said.
Kind of makes me look back to the Occupy stuff with what you said as far as leaderless movements. Because while I can't say there was no accountability, it was difficult to have accountability because we literally had to take everything to a general assembly with at least everyone who was part of the camp in order to address the certain behaviors of a few people who we had to remove from said camp. And
it turned into a bureaucratic mess.
Yes.
Exactly. And so that's when you have like benevolent dictatorship. Really, like people aren't really ready to hear it because they're not well studied or whatever, and the settlers have these books on it too, like what was this one I seen? Threw it at me a couple times and I just like analyzed it politically. I was like, this is garbage, and threw it back in their face. And I cite references the Kingdom of Tonga. Kingdom of Tonga is one of the countries that has the least amount of prisoners on their any nation on the planet. You know, and they're able to solve a lot of their problems with self-determination amongst themselves. You know, but exactly for that thing that you just said, once you have to go to try to get consensus from all these people and stuff, you can't make a move.
Right.
And part of the thing about the wolf medicine is we're faster than everyone else. The wolf is faster than everyone else. You can read about it. I wrote about it in a couple of my blogs. I think the Oak Flats one, I mentioned it. But, you know, wolves are faster than everyone else. So to be that, we have to make decisions quicker. You know, and I always set a goal, and I prided myself to be like the first one to respond to something. You've seen it with Thacker Pass. I was out there on the mountainside before anybody even knew what was going on. That's the proof.
Yes.
We're faster than everyone else. It just is.
So you mentioned gender sparring earlier, and I know that we talked about this the last time we had you on, but do you maybe want to elaborate on why gender sparring doesn't happen?
Well,
Gender
because of our
analysis.
group rule that we don't allow the gender sparring, we treat it as a disunity. I started hanging out with, well, I was in an African communist group for like almost a year, and I was banging on it hard. I was putting like 16-hour days into it, running like 4 committees by myself, and helped them develop a security force and all designed like a micronation and shit. Like, people don't even know. It's wild. Like, but what I learned from them was that they take threats to unity seriously. And I didn't really understand that. I had not been in a group that was held to that level of discipline before. But there's probably hundreds of groups online now, and you see them all like fighting. That's why I made these 7 unity rules, is because I had identified them all as 7 barriers to unity. And so, I mean, there's literally groups that are caught up to where their whole existence at this point is gender sparring. And it derailed everything from taking real action. Some of those groups, I was like, man, I'm out of here. You know, you guys are tripping. And I'd come back 3 years later, and they were still fighting over the bathroom. And then to me, that was like a clear indication that these people were not serious about taking action anyway. There's another point of the analysis I learned from the African communists. They put the land struggle above almost all else. So like, you practice identifying yourself, like even in chat, you say like your race, your nation, and then your gender. And so we see, like, with a lot of like young settlers that are like really caught up in gender politics, gender politics is paramount to them because their land issue is accounted for. They're on top of our stolen land, so they have a place to go. They took our land. So, you know, and then race, their race is on top, so they don't have a real racial element to their political analysis. And so that leaves them with gender. And they treat gender like it's just the absolute number one end all be all. And that's, quite convenient for them being posted up on stolen land that way. So this is why we insist on the indigenous rule, because we're just like, well, we don't even play that game. Gender comes last here.
Right, like the intersectionality of it is still there, but I like the perspective that you guys have of the 7 different genders and all are considered sacred. So like it's not even a fucking question to be brought to the table of do you matter because of your sexuality or gender or your orientation, whatever the case may be. Like, no, you're valid right off the bat. You fucking matter. So how about we address these other issues that are affecting all of us? But I'd also like to pose you with a question here, because statistically speaking, in this country, when it comes to both racial crimes as well as crimes against the LGBTQ community, the majority of those crimes are committed by cis, white, hetero males. And what solutions do you see there for addressing that? Because I see it as a problem in how people are being raised to even have...
If I can just interject, I think that that's a problem with our white supremacist patriarchal culture.
Absolutely. Part of that raising I was referring to. Yes, absolutely.
It's a power issue. A lot of the questions people will ask me, I'll say the answer to almost every question you're going to ask me is to build power. So that goes, if you're like, how are you going to address that? Well, first you have to get people to stop lashing out at indigenous leadership, because we're the only one who's going to stop it. We're the only ones that can even call for unity on our land. The whites can't call for unity. Asians can't call for unity. Blacks can't call for unity. Nobody can call for unity for us, and it's only when we're ready. We haven't been ready for years and years and years. People kept asking me, Mato, when are you going to be ready? Well, it's because we hadn't had the power dynamics figured out. Everyone wanted to tokenize us or have us join up under them, and that is not how it's going to go. Everyone's welcome to join up under us. You got it confused. Whose land? Our land. Red power. Okay? So Africans, everyone join up under us, We had to go teach people about being inclusive. We had to show it. All these things, you go to places and they're like, oh, we have an inclusivity club or inclusivity director. Well, right there, that's a red flag. If you hear that about a place, that means that group doesn't know shit about inclusivity. They could come get a lesson from us. Because right now, I'm the only one that sees this actually inclusive, where we don't tolerate xenophobia, homophobia, none of this shit. And we've seen it going on with the red power groups, the black power groups. It's like no place is left unaffected except for us. So we don't fucking tolerate it. You can get kicked out. You get a couple warnings and we give you the boot. People can come and study here. We study hard at Spirit Runners. Go ahead, kick back and study for a bit. Learn that political line. You get a feel for that political line and you think, that's good. You get a little more involved, start doing stuff. But you got to get a feel for our political line. People are got all these different ideas right now, and a lot of the education people are putting out is not beneficial. Taking people in 100 different ways right now, dividing people to where what kind of political analysis are you going to get if you're listening to like 6 or more different teachers? You're not going to be able to focus on anything. Focus on the indigenous resistance. Do the reading. Look at our analysis. It's the best. I'm not just hyping my own shit. I've worked. I haven't taken a day off in months. Nobody does that. I'm going on like 5-month stretch right now. I worked harder. That's how come I know my shit. And our partnership with the All African Revolutionary People's Party is the best education out here. Period. It just is. You know, they're the only ones that have that level of political education. And why it's not being embraced is beyond me. That's the best shit. I think people are being anti-black, anti-indigenous, whatever your hang-up is. You're a little hater, you're pessimistic, you don't believe we can win, you're nihilistic, you're depressed. Get your depression together. Are you a warrior? Are we going to fight, or are you going to cry around? Olajuwon Martinez was this warrior woman that I met in the Dakotas. And her father was killed in the occupation of Wounded Knee. He lost his life defending those lands. So she's like an AIM baby. She was born into the resistance. And so these are some of the people I learned from, you know. Much respect, shout out. I don't know how people are doing. I hope they're safe, you know. But these are some of the people I learned from. And one thing that she told me, she said, we don't need any more whining warriors.
Right.
And right now I see a lot of that. We're all in isolation. Isolation is your chance to grow. How come you don't know that? That's that thing that's going to polish you off and make you strong. Embrace it. Just be with it. Just sit like that for a minute. Just get strong. We don't need any more whining warriors.
Whining never helped any fucking buddy. Action did, though.
Yeah, and building power, organization. Every complaint we have, you just get in there and you organize, you know. How many people is that your response? You get frustrated, recruit. You get pissed off, organize. You get scared, build. Have some different responses here, people. Everyone right now is oh, we don't have a safe place to go. We don't have a safe place for our kids. Well, duh. No shit. Because we've all forgotten what self-determination is. We're all waiting for some neo-colonial shit to come save the day, waiting for Kevin Costner, Leonardo DiCaprio. We can't be strong on our own, you know. But we could be building our own schools. Then, hey, guess what? You'd have a safe place for the kids to go. But you can't be all fighting each other and fighting leaders that intend to do that. We have a plan to put in some kind of educational program like 5 years after we get land. It's already figured out. And why people don't want to support that? You're just a hater. You're drinking haterade. You don't even want to provide for the kids. Revolution means material change. Physical material change, not symbolism.
Right. The goal is to actually improve the material conditions of people.
Right.
Improve life.
Yeah. Grow organic food and you take a bite and you can taste the change.
Fuck yeah.
You know, and it's something my grandfather told me, you know, that having these hard AIM guys around was like, oh man, this guy's hard. He was hard because the Korean War made him hard. It's not Vietnam. Vietnam was soft in comparison. So he's seen people like jump off of the boat, on the way over there. People don't know that. Some people just took their chances with the ocean, just jumped off into the sea rather than go fight. You know, everyone over there got frostbite, lost toes. He's seen somebody hacked up with a machete for $1. You know, shit like that. And so that's going to happen again real soon. You know, it's all fun and games till the machetes come out, but it's coming pretty soon. Everyone's like shaking their ass on TikTok or something. Like, that's disturbing. You like need to get a clue. Millions of people are going to die. And all these years I've been the messenger. They want to shoot the messenger. They shoot themselves. Keep shaking your ass on TikTok. But yeah, it's like having those kind of leaders, you know, like just made me hard and almost in an insensitive way because of the way that they've been traumatized. But that's just where we're at. We're dealing with this nitty gritty shit. I used to go to my mom or something to be like, she'd be like, "What you crying for?" Whoa, okay. You know, that kind of thing. And so that just toughened me up. Took a lot of years to toughen me up, but that's what I think, you know, we're going to really have to reach as a people. And, you know, I don't even know if like people have to be ready for the idea that healing might not even come in this lifetime.
It's true.
You know, a lot of these people out here, they're like, "Oh, I need healing before I can contribute to the movement." You're being selfish. Like, fuck your self-care, you know?
Maybe
Like
getting
those
involved in something that matters will help with that fucking healing.
Community care.
Yeah.
A lot of the leaders I had laughed at self-care. Olawan, the one who said no whining warriors, she laughs at self-care. Those people are on the poorest Indian reservation in the Western Hemisphere. It was only recently surpassed in poverty by Haiti in the last few years. So what people think is, I need some self-care. The indigenous resistance is laughing at that. I remember that one of the Idle No More leaders, she said, we'll finally like get ahead or something once we become prison strong. And what she meant by that was like getting strong off of nothing. Like, we have nothing and we are still stronger than you, you know. And so, I mean, that's the kind of currency that I'm working with at Illahee Spirit Runners. That's why we have the mandatory martial arts program. People are like, mandatory anything. Oh, you won't tell me. Those defiant ones, I just kick them right out. It's a disorder. People with defiance disorder cannot operate in a militant organization. You're still on some punk rock adolescent baby shit, you know. I haven't been an anarchist since I was 17 because it's not really rebellious. What's more rebellious is following orders from disciplined revolutionaries. That's way more rebellious. You know, building something that might be able to fight back and contend, maybe even to win, instead of having a crybaby outrage and break a few windows to a place that has insurance anyway. And so, you know, a lot of people don't like me because I can just like take their political analysis, crumble it up and smash it, you know. But it took me a decade of study for that. Recently, I did a video against eco-sabotage, against adventurism. And it was because of my life experience. I had gotten to see a lot of these people get out of prison. They get out of prison, they've written a book, they come talk about the book, and they tell you a couple things. Like, look, we don't have time to make all these mistakes. If you can learn from someone else who's made a mistake, that'll save you a lot of time and pain. So I learned from some of these people, and they say things like, if I could do it again, I would have done something with longevity so I could spend more time with my son. Really real, like human things like that. Like, how can you argue with that logic? And but also like leading to like a paranoia, right? Where people are afraid to join groups or land defender groups in particular, because we've gotten so adventurous that we're not even safe. We wonder why we're facing 15-year sentences. It's because we're adventurous as fuck. We need to study communism. Okay. And hey, that's cool, kids. I didn't figure this out till I was nearly 40. All right. I'll work with you. We'll figure this shit out together. But I had some leaders who were like looking after me. And like when George Floyd popped off, like I could have gone up to the war zone. I'm 2 hours away. But people were like, no, Moto, don't do that. That's adventurous as fuck. Those people don't even have a security plan. They're all getting wrapped up. And as soon as George Floyd is over, you're going to emerge victorious. You just hold tight. And so that was like, I needed that, you know? But I forgot the thing that my grandpa finally taught me one day. He said, all these places you're trying to take over, because there's so many, I can't name them all. We ran a drone project out of Portland that was trying to spy on people for ICE. And like, I'm trying to protect like a Vision Quest site up in the coastal mountain range. And he was like, hey, but you don't have the deed. I'm like, what? I get all mad because I hate that answer. And he's like, no, serious, you don't have the deed. You're trying to protect all this land and take this shit over, but they run you out every time because you don't have the deed. So I'm angry as all hell. I go home, I'm stewing about it, and then I'm like, he's right. He's right. It's the same reason why kind of like returning land to a tribe isn't the best solution. Why? Because the U.S. federal government holds their land in trust and they do not have the deed. If you have the land deed, then that means you can physically defend it. They can't send in the dogs, the police, and rough you up because this time you have the deed and you're going to shoot back. Land back, red power. And so what we really need to do is we need to get the land deeds and say, hey, this time we own it.
I was unaware of that being held in trust.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting, but holy shit. So how do you go about getting those deeds?
You have to actually buy the land and it almost has to be like in a personal or a family ownership situation rather than a tribal ownership situation.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah, otherwise they'll never give you the deed, which means they always have the right of might against you. You're not legally allowed to defend yourself unless you have the deed. And so I always wondered, like with these pipeline projects too, why don't people post up at a place where they're like, okay, this ranch is 100 acres in the middle of the pipeline. We have the deed. We're not going to budge. And we mean it this time. People just aren't looking at all of these stuff. It's my job to look at all of this. All of this. And I'm homeless. I live in a van. I'm doing okay this year. I'm posted up in a garden and all that really says is that I'm getting good at being homeless, though, and that's what is that? But what I'm saying is, I had to work really hard, you know. You'll see a performance thing, like people in third world countries will out rebel like the soft, the comfortable. And these Americans are all on some individualistic, oh, how's that going to affect me and my job? And even they'll put their family over their tribe or their race. And that's all individualism. You know. Come to think of it, you know, somebody's family won't really matter if their race is in jeopardy. How are you going to feel about that? Oh, I did okay for my family, but my race sure took a hit. Come on. You know, but that's where people are at mentally right now. So we just got to recognize like where people are at and then disrupt them, you know, shock them with the lightning. That's what it's for. Can I get a pulse check on the movement? Clear.
Right.
So, like, I guess just to sum it up, I got one last question. Out of all of the actions that you've been a part of, what was your favorite and why?
I don't know. I would have to say Liberation Days if I really had to pick. Just, I want to do that again.
Right on.
Just like to go that far, meet all those people, celebrate armed resistance, learning about, you know, what made a people free of humility. Is once they've humiliated you, you're done. You know, there's a prayer runner one time, a Matee guy. He was telling me he came way out to see me, and because the wolves wouldn't leave him alone in his dreams. They're like, go help Mateau. And it's like a wolf with like a woman's voice saying this to him, and he's like, no, I don't want to. Go back to sleep. And she comes back and she's like, now. So he packs up his shit and he comes out to see me, you know, and we got some work done. But what he said is, once you're humiliated, you're done. And there's only 2 races on the planet that he figured had not been fully humiliated yet. And that was the Tibetan Buddhists and indigenous of the Western Hemisphere. So this resistance is important because you cannot allow them to humiliate you. Once you're humiliated as a people, you're done. It's resist, red power. But yeah, my favorite would be Liberation Days, you know, to being actually able to resist alongside like the great grandson of Crazy Horrors or people, you know, some of them before they passed. I met like original participants in Wounded Knee, and some of them might have just been kids. My grandfather even played a support role in Wounded Knee. He tried to bring out supplies. The feds got him, tried to frame him up actually, and like sent him back to Oregon. So it was hard to even get supplies in there. The Cherokees ended up sending a helicopter. I mean, this was a and it's not over, you know. We're still here. In fact, you know, they left all those bunkers out there when they attacked Wounded Knee. And, you know, so it's like, well, now the people have those bunkers. You know, they don't think about that stuff sometimes, you know. So what did they do? Come and fortify us? We are resistance. We are the land. Don't mess with the indigenous resistance.
Caitlin asked if there's a state or area that scared the shit out of you.
I was attacked by a dog one time. Eastern Oregon and all this stuff is pretty rough. You've got patriot types out there, and they know damn well that the law is on their side. So yeah, one of my scary moments, I was attacked by a white supremacist who sicked his young German Shepherd on us. And I knew what he was doing, you know. It's some people it's part of colonialism to have the anti-wild thing where you're always trying to like pit domestic animals up against wild ones, or like Indian killers, you know. Can we go out and kill these wild people? And so that's what he was doing, you know. He wanted to see if his little juvenile German Shepherd could take one of my wolves, the sick fuck. And he was just a feeble old man. Apparently his name in the neighborhood was Machine Gun Mike or something, and he's a member of the he's an oath keeper. So this oath keeper sicks his dog on us, and I'm like, I know what he's doing. He's trying to like anger me so I'll get a response, because my wolf could kill his dog right now, but his little dog didn't volunteer for this shit. You feel me? So I grab my wolf and I throw him to the ground, and I completely shield him with my body, and my wolf wants to get up and just shred this German Shepherd, which he could, but I won't let him. And then so like this German Shepherd's like nipping at me, like trying to bite me in my lat muscles and stuff. And this position I was in was a judo position. Teach you this in jiu-jitsu. It's called the turtle. People forget I'm a trained martial artist, like to the point that I don't have to think. And so I'm using this position, and I realized, because all those years I studied jiu-jitsu, I thought, this is weak. This is weak. Why would you ever show anyone the turtle? Where do you use this? I don't understand. The turtle is for sheltering the vulnerable, right? And so they were not able to attack my wolf because I had covered him like that, you know. And then so I'm able to like talk to this white supremacist and basically talk him down, you know. I'm like, hey, get your dog under control. Get your dog under control. Why can't you control your dog, you know? And then I'm trying to like switch the narrative. Like, maybe you shouldn't even have a dog like that if you can't control it. Get control of your dog, you know. And so it was really scary, you know. The person who I was staying with like didn't even see it go down, you know. And then like, you know, she ended up calling the police. Like me, I have like basically like a no cop calling policy. Like, if you mess with me and you scare me bad enough, you're gonna be the one who has to call the police. Don't mess with me. If you're a bully and you're watching this, go find someone else to pick on. I'm a bully breaker. I'll break you. So I just held my cool through this whole thing, you know, and I ended up getting up and walking away from that situation. And because I didn't lose my cool, I didn't become angry, I didn't choose to assault that feeble white supremacist afterwards, which I probably should have, could have. I walked away with no charges, no nothing, free to live my life and go on. What I call that is a wolf trap. Somebody trying to trick you. Somebody trying to set a wolf trap for you. And that day I didn't fall for the wolf trap.
Makes me real thankful you knew that turtle move to protect your wolf, because had your wolf protected you and attacked that dog, they probably would have tried to take your wolf and put him down.
Right. Yeah, and I knew that. I knew that he was trying to manipulate white supremacy against me. Yeah. And that's what will be if people don't support the resistance. Something else will come in its place. Why I'm trying to recruit a lot of white people. I just like to clarify that real quick. People are still coming at me like, "Hey, I'm a settler. I don't think, can I join? I don't think I can join." Yes, you can join. You know why? Because you're going to join under indigenous rule. You can even achieve an officer position if you work hard enough. And I want you to join with us. Why? So I don't have to re-educate you later. And so that I don't have to fight you later. So that you don't become oppositional. So that you don't become a threat. So that you don't go and join the Proud Boys or something like that.
Better for you to be recruited here than there.
That's right.
Actually do some good. Caitlin asks, do you consider Portland a progressive city, or do you think it's standing in its own way?
Portland is testing grounds. Politically, there's people there who have been put in power by what kind of clandestine shadow movement, I don't know. But they're there to keep people from coming together in organization. That's probably why you see such a huge anarchist element. But it's like gatekeeper central, and I'd like to also reach out to some of the young natives with this. Like, if you're having like these gatekeeper problems, it seems like there's more people trying to stop you out in the world. Come over to my side, because that is what is out there, and people will say that I'm disrespectful, and let them, but you can't gatekeep a whole movement into impotence. I don't care who hired you, work for the FBI, the CIA, Homeland Security, I don't give a fuck. Or you're just selfish, jealous, egotistical. I don't give a fuck. So it's just getting that way. And sometimes I think they would like to have groups escalate towards violence. One of them sent somebody against me the other day and tried to swing on me, and it just makes me think, like, who sent you? Who do you really work for? Do you want to get one or both of us hurt? Do you want to get one or both of us arrested? How come you're so stupid you're trying to do native on native crime? How come you're that stupid? Who do you work for? And then it's hard to I don't want to like bad jacket people, but when your behavior, when your like your mental health is so poor that you're starting to act like a fed, that's an issue. You have to keep your little, I call it the pettiness of human beings. You have to keep your pettiness in line. We're dealing with extinction. We're having nation to nation conversations, and you can't let your jealousy thing. A quick on the gender spar thing. I know we're all over the place, and this is a good interview so far. But in the last year, I just want to put this out there because they accuse men of all these bad things, but I want you to know that the women and the other genders do it too. So you can't rip on men if the ladies are doing it too. Now I keep getting these women coming at me who want me for sex. True story. And I just say, hey, I'm not interested in sex, especially with people who can't organize. What turns me on is if you can organize. And then they get mad that I won't give them sex and they leave and try to sabotage my organization. And I think men need to speak up about this because we just go, whatever, we're tough, we blow it off. But it doesn't really give an accurate portrayal of what's going on out there. And so I'm just kind of mad at anybody right now who's putting sex over the movement. Like if we're having a nation-to-nation conversation and this affects the unborn and you're concerned about whether I'm going to fuck you, get the hell out of here right now.
As well as like grow up and learn how to handle rejection. You don't need to be petty and try to undermine somebody's political action because they prioritize that over getting laid.
Yeah. So women do it too. We don't get into that. Oh, one thing I don't like is the term smash patriarchy. It really like went viral. It's everywhere. Smash patriarchy. What the hell does that even mean? And I want to be cautious of situations where if we reversed the wording, it would sound psycho. Like if somebody went around saying smash matriarchy, you would think they really had a screw loose.
Well, yeah. But
no one's really trying it on that way, and so it's just leading to gender sparring. I'm seeing people just take pot shots at their only leadership because of what is between their legs, and taking pot shots at them until you have no leadership.
Well, the problem is with patriarchy, it expects that all leadership be male. That's why I smash the patriarchy, because it means bring an end to male rule, male governance over every fucking thing. Doesn't mean no men can participate in that. It means that women and non-binary people need an equal seat at the table too, because with patriarchy, we have seen that influence everything from not just the misogynistic aspects that are blatantly obvious, but racism, when it comes to religious oppression, the whole 9 yards comes into play with patriarchy, and it has caused a lot of harm. The reason why a lot of people look at you like you have a screw loose if you say smash the matriarchy is because it's like, when was that ever really given a fucking chance on a governmental level? It hasn't been. So, when it comes to actually being able to speak from our experience, we've seen the trouble that is created by having a world mostly controlled by not just men, but specifically white men, white Christian men, white Christian men. So it's become problematic.
Yeah, whose world though? Because we've only been colonized in 150 years, so that's not necessarily our world. And so I had seen like feminists who would use that um, to lash out at male indigenous leaders, and it's like, really? Okay. So
If
that's a
anything,
terrible application.
it really is.
If you perceive that that patriarchy is a problem, and your highest priority target is a male indigenous leader who has little or no agency over their own destiny on their own land anyway, I say that's a terrible application.
Well, it
Um,
speaks
Yeah,
to
I
the
mean, a lot of
willful
liberal
ignorance.
feminists really do break it down that simply. But most, I would say that most, even feminist-minded people further on the left don't view it quite so simply.
so in our circles, we view
No,
white feminism as white supremacy. Yeah, and
white
that
feminism
was
is
really,
absolutely a problem. It's usually worthy
yeah,
Yeah,
and
right.
does not have any consideration women of color. Um, but as far
right,
as the people who have attacked you in that manner of, seeing you as a patriarchal force, that speaks volumes to their sheer fucking ignorance to indigenous ways of life. And indigenous people are not known for having male rule and female subjugation. Indigenous
right,
cultures tend to have a respect across the board, regardless of your gender. Look at how many
right,
chiefs have been women. Okay,
right,
there isn't a patriarchal rule there. It is a have you earned the position? Okay, lead. Doesn't matter what genitals you have. What matters is your ability to lead.
right.
So whoever the fuck said that to you is ignorant as shit.
Yeah, and so like, our indigenous leaders or indigenous women have us fill these roles. That's our cultural role as a warrior to go forward. Um, and then there's like back to life experience, being, you know, one of the at that moment that Idle No More was born, like being there, fasting with Chief Teresa Spence, supporting that female indigenous leadership from day one, doing worldwide prayers. We used to have this prayer. We would say, "A woman will be awakened," and we were just praying for female indigenous leaders. Y'all don't know that because Anonymous destroyed all my websites and shit because I make people nervous. They knew back then I was going to take this shit all over. Okay. But Idle No More. That was what, 2013. So, about 8 years we've been waiting for these female indigenous leaders to come forward. And some of us in the warrior societies and stuff were specifically holding space for them. Like, look at Illahee Spirit Runners. I have room right now for 1, 2, 3, 4. Give me 4 female indigenous leaders right now. I've got a spot for you. But you're going to have to do more than talk. And you're going to have to do more than a knee-jerk reaction and lashing out at men. Because they'll come by and say, well, it's female leadership, blah, 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 but then no one will fill it. Okay? And so that just can't be. In fact, anybody, for any reason, stop lashing out at leadership unless you're willing to fill it. And you're not. You won't fight the army. You won't have chemical weapons used against you. You won't do all the shit that I did. You're not willing to live in a van for 10 years. I have no problem taking care of myself. I could be living a lot better. You feel me? So no one's ready for that level of sacrifice. So don't come at me for what's between my legs.
Right. It would be one thing if you were espousing some type of misogyny, which I've never seen you do. That's uncalled for somebody to come at you for what's between your legs when you're not using that as a weapon against them.
Yeah, it's the crabs in a barrel. It's Indian politics, you know. Yeah. A lot of what was used against me was nepotism and cronyism as well. People want to know, oh, what family are you from? I think we touched a bit on this last time, but I'm finding a lot of those people with these fancy last names and they don't have the skill set. You know, your dad or your grandpa or your mom or your auntie threw down for the movement, but it wasn't you. And if you don't even have a skill set, that ain't it. You can't lead with a last name. Your last name doesn't mean shit to me. And they come in and they're like, oh, I'm special. I've even had them say that. I'm special. The fuck you aren't. Nobody's special in Illahee Spirit Runners. Anybody watching this, don't come here and think you're special. I don't give a fuck what your last name is. We're going to build new leaders here. We will produce new leaders. And chances are most of them will have a last name you've not heard of before.
Right. Leadership is not an inheritable trait.
No, it is not. All right. Well, we're a little over 2 hours now. I guess we could probably wrap it up, but this has been an awesome conversation. Yeah, I mean,
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, thank you. I'm just glad that. Well, I realized one of the first times I talked to you that you have a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom, and I'm just grateful that I can sit here and listen to you. Honestly,
same.
Thank you.
Learn a lot from you every time we speak. I love it.
Derek also in the comments said thank you.
Yes.
So did Caitlin earlier, but I'm not scrolling back up that far.
Right. Yeah.
So did Don.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, Don didn't get to pop in here with me because he's got to get up early in the morning, so he went to bed. But he wanted me to tell you thank you too, because he's been following what you're doing, and he basically wanted me to give you the power fist for him.
Awesome. Yeah, go give us a share on social media because we're still invisibilized. We got to get the word out there. There's a lot of nostalgia. And I'm not throwing no shade. I love them. I'm an AIM baby, but people in these movements are waiting for American Indian movement to show up. American Indian movement didn't pass the torch. It came down to there was just a few old men left. No one wanted to pass the torch except to their own family members. So, I don't know. You'll probably be mad and try to sue me or assassinate me, but AIM doesn't basically exist anymore. I was one of the last ones who tried to make it strong again. I got together with some younger AIM leaders from the new era, and I said, hey, is anyone interested in making American Indian movement strong again? And it was all crickets. Okay? So here we are manifested under this new banner, ISR, Illahee Spirit Runners. We just transform, but we have that original. My grandfather and my great uncle were American Indian movement senior members under Dennis Banks, period. So don't be thinking that some nostalgia. A lot of those leaders are 89 years old and they can barely walk. I'm not throwing no shade. I love them. I'm an AIM grandbaby, but you cannot expect that some 89-year-old people are going to head anything up, okay?
Right. It's just
well
a matter
said.
of they're elderly and can't physically be getting out there to do these direct actions.
Right.
It's too much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Here's the 300 more.
Fuck yeah.
Oh, I know, right? 300. 300. I like that movie, right? We should like co-op like the number logo. 300. Ah, all right. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, I just got a mental image of you throwing somebody down a hole like, this is Turtle Island.
That would be great. That would be great.
Oh man, my brain's a weird place to live sometimes, but I love it.
Okay,
All
I'm
right.
gonna roll out now. Red Power. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mako. Been awesome. Hell yes. Good to see you too, Derek.
Yeah, it has been a while.
Yes. Too long.
If you want to like get involved, bro, we can bring you on.
Fucking A. Anytime. Yeah, that's one thing we've been discussing lately is wanting to have an anniversary show with fellow occupiers.
Yeah, dude, you believe it's been a decade, bro?
I know. We're getting old. Not really. Just older.
Kind of old.
Hey, my gray hairs are natural highlights and they're purple now.
I don't have that many grays yet, but you know, my hairline just goes further up every year.
Fair. Yeah, mine's just gotten more and more natural highlights over the years.
All right. Anyway, thank you everybody for joining us tonight, and keep up with our website to find out when the shows are going to be. But we're here every Tuesday.
Yeah. Our other pieces are kind of hitting at random right now because of scheduling issues, but there is more theory coming.
There certainly is. Until next time.
Love, peace, live long and prosper.
Land, peace, and bread.
Yes. Thank you to Caitlin. I just saw your last comment there. Appreciate that.